much for coming today. My name is Asosa Osa. I am the Deputy Executive Director at Fair Fight, and I'm joined today by members of the Quitman community, by members of the Quitman 10+2. Georgia has a long history of suppressing the freedom to vote among people of color and marginalized communities. But let's be clear, voter suppression is not some part of some sad and distant past. Under Brian Kemp, first through his role as Secretary of State when he purged over 1 million voters from the roll, and now as governor, as his allies challenged tens of thousands of voters' right to cast a ballot. The voter suppression that has been our is alive and well today. No matter the barriers erected by Kemp and his fellow anti-voter politicians, we will continue to turn out and make our voices heard. We will not be silenced. And so I am proud today to introduce one of the Quitman 10+2, Dr. Nancy Bernard, to get us started.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Whitfield-Denner. I'm the former mayor of the city of Quitman. But before I became mayor, I was always a community activist. I actively engaged my community in voting, on the ways to vote, how to vote, absentee ballot, in person, early. But we always talked about the issues that were at hand. So we really worked on voter education in our community. I'm here today because Governor Brian Kemp has the audacity to return to our city of Quitman on today to campaign, and I think that Georgia needs to be reminded of the dark side of things that happened actually here in Quitman. While he was Secretary of State, Brian Kemp sent armed law enforcement agencies to our homes, myself and 11 others. And we were arrested, charged, and taken to court on false charges of voter fraud.
Nancy. I'm a friend of mine. I'm one of middle 10+2. Brian Kemp's son had charged 120 felonies. He's one of us. And you don't realize how hard that was to have felonies against us. Because a lot of the places handcuffs on our arms and we've never been arrested before. That placed a cloud over our heads. The question was if we do anything wrong. We put fear in our community. We went around to our black community and let them know that we could out and vote. And a lot of members of our black community voted. This had never been done before in this town. They got out and decided they right to vote. What the person did in education is our teachers. Our teachers know more about our kids and they know what our kids need. So our teachers in the election, they were qualified to be force for our children. Our children, that's their need for our children. As a children worker, we have the right to go out and ask our community to get out and vote for the candidate and for their children. Don't allow fear, because the police came to your home with guns and everything. Don't allow fear to go out and vote. You need to get out and vote. even though that it's certain time for us, and we went through this, don't let fear cause you not going to vote. Your vote do count. Early voting start October 17th. Spread the word. Get out there and vote. Don't be fearful. Do what you got to do. Get out there and vote.
Governor's press secretary. I just wanted to. Well, this event is not open to press, so we can't.
Now you'll hear from Miss Dr. Diane Thomas.
I'm Dr. Diane Thomas. I'm appalled at the fact that Brian Kemp has the audacity to come to Quitman, Georgia, the town where he tried to keep me from being on the Board of Education.
Thank you all so much for coming today. My name is Asosa Osa. I am the Deputy Executive Director at Fair Fight, and I'm joined today by members of the Quitman community, by members of the Quitman 10+2. Georgia has a long history of suppressing the freedom to vote among people of color and marginalized communities. But let's be clear, voter suppression is not some part of some sad and distant past. Under Brian Kemp, first through his role as Secretary of State when he purged over 1 million voters from the roll, and now as governor, as his allies challenged tens of thousands of voters' right to cast a ballot.
The voter suppression that has been our is alive and well today. No matter the barriers erected by Kemp and his fellow anti-voter politicians, we will continue to turn out and make our voices heard. We will not be silenced. And so I am proud today to introduce one of the Quitman 10+2, Dr. Nancy Bernard, to get us started.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Dinner. I'm the former mayor of the city of Quitman. But before I became mayor, I was always a community activist. I actively engaged my community in voting, on the ways to vote, how to vote, absentee ballot, in person, early. But we always talked about the issues that were at hand. So we really worked on voter education in our community. I'm here today because Governor Brian Kemp has the audacity to return to our city of Quitman on today to campaign, and I think that Georgia needs to be reminded of the dark side of things that happened actually here in Quitman. While he was Secretary of State, Brian Kemp sent armed law enforcement agencies to our homes, myself and 11 others. And we were arrested, charged, and taken to court on false charges of voter fraud.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm a friend of mine. I'm going to little 10+2. Brian Kemp's son had charged 120 felonies. He's one of us. And you don't realize how hard that was to have felonies against us. Because a lot of them place handcuffs on our arms and we've never been arrested before. They place a cloud over our heads. The question was if we do anything wrong. We put fear in our community. We went around to our black community and let them know that we could out and vote. Now a lot of them, our black community voted. This had never been done before in this town. They got out and decided they right to vote. What better person did in education is our teachers. Our teachers know more about our kids and they know what our kids need. So our teachers in the election, they were qualified to be force for our children. Our children just they need for our children. As a military worker, we have the right to go out and ask our community to get out and vote for the candidate for their children. Don't allow fear because the police came to your home with guns and everything. Don't allow fear to go out and vote. You need to get out and vote. Even though that it's certain time for us, and we went through this, don't let fear cause you not to go out and vote. Your vote do count. Early voting start October 17th. Spread the word. Get out and vote. Don't be fearful. Do what you got to do. Get out there and vote.
Press secretary. I just wanted to. Well, this event is not open to press, so we can't.
Now you'll hear from Miss Dr. Diane Thomas.
I'm Dr. Diane Thomas. I'm appalled at the fact that Brian Kemp has the audacity to come to Quitman, Georgia, the town where he tried to keep me from being on the Board of Education.
Greetings. I'm George Buster Ryan with the Get To Free Press social media network I started years ago when I discovered that the white-owned, controlled, and dominated news media would not adequately cover the news in the black community. I started doing civil rights work back in 1975, March to be exact, here in Valdosta, and it has taken me across many states and overseas. And so today I want to talk about the white pattern and practice of voter suppression, voter impediments, voting intimidation, and something that is seldom discussed by anybody in America are the black elected officials that are being removed from office after they are elected. Now, I don't hear anybody addressing that issue, but I'm well aware of that because I was called December 21st, 2010, when the Quitman-10+2 were arrested under Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp. and his investigators, who the lead investigator was Glenn Archer. I cannot leave out then Governor Nathan Deal, for he too was in this white pattern and practice that removed blacks from office. Moreover, many local city councils type governments were changed when blacks took office. They changed the type of government, whether it was a strong mayoral type government to a city manager type government. Everything was done to weaken the power of the blacks that were in office. In many cases, city attorneys worked against these black elected officials. We have documented that across 18 cities that I have investigated as a reporter with the Get to Free Press, when other news media networks would not connect the dots to show voter intimidation, voter impediments, voter suppression, and removing black elected officials from office. Now, in these videos that I'm going to post the next few days will consist of communities or cities and counties across the state of Georgia. And I want you to bear with me. Now, the news media may get sound bites from one or two cities, but I went across the state of Georgia when I was called upon to record and to report, and that's what I did. I'm George Boston Rhymes, and the video that you are about to see is nothing but the truth. It started out in Quitman, with the Quitman 10+2 being brought up on 120 federal charges concerning alleged voter fraud and the misuse of absentee ballots. We will start this journey out as our latest overview that involved the cities that I was called to. I didn't go looking for a story. I was called to these areas to just cover the news and to assist these black elected officials who were being treated like hell, mistreated by the judicial system, by members of law enforcement, by Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp during his tenure. First of all, I'm going to add, as I go through these cities briefly, as you watch the next videos, you will see where I went into all these cities. You will see at some point what I did, but no other news media in the United States of America published what I published. No news media in the state of Georgia went from city to city as I did in order to keep the people from being deaf, dumb, and blind to the times and unable to make intelligent decisions based on facts. Now, first of all, I was called to Madison, Florida, where black folk, 9 of them, were arrested for alleged voter fraud, misuse of absentee ballot in the same manner as the Quitman 10+2. On December the 21st, 2010, I was called by members of the Quitman 10 who were being arrested in Quitman in Brooks County, Georgia. I was in Atlanta. So I came back and walked the streets of Quitman, and I got firsthand from the people that were being intimidated by Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp officers, the G.B.R, the Quitman Police Department, the Sheriff Department, and the G.B.R, as you will hear on some of these videos, and these people talk about what happened to them. Now, to save time, that's Madison, Florida, and those blacks were called to Madison, Florida 9. From there, I went to Quitman, Georgia, with the Quitman 10+2. From there to Camilla, Georgia, with Mayor Rufus Davis. And in Meg's, it was Linda Harris, by the way. That's right, they treated her terribly. And they removed her from office too. Then I was called by a police officer there in Lumpkin, Georgia, where black mayor Charles Gibson was called a nigger by a council member named Miss Stone, a white lady. And nothing, to my knowledge, was done against that individual. Tyra, the clerk in Lumpkin, was terminated from her position, and the police department lied on her. I interviewed her, and all that is available on some of these videos that if you Google on YouTube, Boston, G.B.R., and these cities that I'm naming, there is little need of me reposting it over again, because I have done many videos on the same cities. We were trying to get Eric Holder of the Department of Justice and former President Barack Obama to come in and investigate. We also contacted Georgia Attorney General Sam Olens, Senator Brown, Representative Tyrone Brooks, David Lucas, Helen Butler, and others, as well as Jesse Jackson, Rainbow Coalition people, and his attorney. And we sent DVDs to Eric Holder and Barack Obama, but they did not respond to the cries of people down here in South Georgia. And here again, this was back in 2010. If they had gotten up, including the Democratic Party chair, DuBose Porter, if they would have come down and got into the case of the Quitman 10+2, maybe they could have stopped some of what we found out later was the case not only in Georgia, but in Florida and across America. So, then I left Lumpkin, and I was called to Dawson, Georgia, with former Mayor Christopher Wright. Christopher Wright was shot 6 times, left in his mom's backyard for dead. And he was crying out in the darkness of night, "Help, help, help. Somebody please come help me." His neighbor is a pastor. You will see him on these videos. You will see me interviewing him. And he's telling his story. And that if he had not went outside to help this young man, the youngest person that ever elected mayor in the state of Georgia, I was told. And you can call Mr. Holly, who's the president of the NAACP, to talk about the city manager that put a hit on Mayor Wright for $5,000. And since the black man that shot him didn't kill him, it came out in court that think they gave him $2,000. You don't know nothing about this because nobody have connected the dots from Madison to Dawson, Georgia. Wait a minute, haven't finished yet. Then I was called to Gordon, Georgia, with Mary Ann Whippaloo. And God knows they mistreated her, threatened her, tried to get her removed from office, say she was taking money, when all she wanted to do was to count for the money through a forensic audit. But that never took place because they fought her until she ran for mayor again and was not elected because of that same white pattern and practice that I have been talking about for a long time. Then I was called to another place by the name of Clayton County. This individual stood before Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp and his all-white election board in Macon. He presented his case with bona fide facts, affidavits, and they all turned thumbs down on him. And he was running for state office. Do you hear what I say? He was running for state office. It's all been documented, y'all. I was the only camera in Brian P. Kemp meeting there that lasted all day in Macon, Georgia. I traveled from Valdosta without pay because I love the people just that much. Wait a minute. Haven't finished yet. Then I was called to Davisboro, Georgia, wherein the police chief was intimidating the city council members to the point that they were afraid to carry out their duties. That's Davisboro, Georgia. But in my most humble opinion, the people in Davisboro, in my opinion, were so afraid until they did not call me back to get deep into it like I have done other cities. But it is indeed a matter of record. Then I was called to a place called Sparta in Hancock County, and they talked about how they removed blacks from the Board of Elections. I'll say again, they removed blacks from the Board of Elections. And so they came to Gordon, Georgia to sit down with me, and I interviewed some of the top leaders in that city. Here again, you can see all that if you Google Sparta and Hancock County voter intimidation and mistreating blacks in the state of Georgia. It's all out there, y'all. But no other news outlet have connected the dots to show Brian P. Kemp white pattern and practice to suppress, to intimidate, and remove blacks from office by impediments, lies, and untruths. And in many cases, these wicked white folk got Uncle Sambos and Aunt Janes to go along with them, as well as the judicial system and law enforcement, to side with the agenda, in some cases, even the attorney of these city governments fought these elected officials in such a way you have never seen before. Now look, you won't find that on your mainstream news, media networks and publications. But I have actual video footage from the meetings, not sound bites, not my writing or of articles about how I interpreted it, but I have the actual situations that you can see for yourself. You will see how the Wilkinson County Post editor just lied on Marianne Whippaloo of Gordon over and over again. You will see every article of that newspaper putting her picture, the ugliest pictures that you could take of anybody, on the front page, along with her sister, Pam Reeves. Then, you have white people, just like in Quitman, lying to remove blacks from office. Now, then I was called to another city called Warrenton, Georgia, with former Mayor George Ivey. And I went over there several times, and they took him to court. And I was able to get in the courtroom, but it seemed as if, though, because of the judge, the white judge, he later put me under a restriction, banned me from all Toombs courtrooms in that circuit. All of them. When I only reported how they were trying to railroad this black mayor, George Ivey, from office. This attorney said to me I violated his order because he saw the video when I posted it on YouTube and it had sound on it. No, not sound, it had video. He said that he didn't want me to video it, just to audio record it. But I have a secret for him if I wanted to challenge it. Because when the sheriff come and talked to me, I was also recording the sheriff. And I told the sheriff what I was doing. I had a tape recorder and an $800 to $1,000 video camera that I was operating. And they said nothing. Apparently, they didn't want the world to see how they was treating that black man in the courtroom. And the mayor attorney said to me, we want you to go back and violate that order, and we're going to take him to court. well, you all know I don't go around suing, but I never went back. But if I have to go back in that judicial system, you bet your sweet dollar that I will violate that order and I will record. Then I was called to another place called Telfair County. Now, I would not have gone to Telfair County, but when I was in Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp meeting there in Macon and met the individual from Clayton County there, and he stood up and presented his case, and then there was 3 or 4 other people, or maybe 5 or 6, from Telfair County got up and presented how they did nothing wrong. And to my amazement, Telfair County Sheriff, who's white, stood up for those voters. And he told Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp and his investigators, along with his all-white Georgia State Election Board members, that they came in and got some of the most respected people of that community. Just like Dr. Diane Thomas said happened in Quitman-Brooks County, Georgia. The same manner that Dr. Nancy Dennett talked across the state of Georgia about how they came in, got the most respected, the most educated black people in Quitman, and brought them up on charges, intimidated the people to a degree that an 84-year-old woman in Marvin said she would never ever vote again because of the men that came to her house carrying a gun. And by the way, one of the Quitman 10 by the name of Latasha Head died. I talked to her father. He said that he believed that the stress that Brian P. Kemp and Governor Nathan Deal put her under, that she died as a result of the stress and the pressure. Now, who gonna pay for that? And who gonna refund the Quitman 10 plus 2 for being removed from office and then put back under Governor Brian P. Kemp? So when you hear the Secretary of State say there's no voter suppression, intimidation, and impediments, and removing blacks from office, we can prove it. We can prove it to 60 Minutes, 48 Hours, Dateline, Nancy Grace, Al Harton, P.P. Billy, and JoJo Willie. If they would only go to the places, don't have to call me, although I've done the work. Just go and Google these names in these cities and these counties that I've done the homework over these many years since December of 2010, when no news media, not a single one in America, have connected the dots from all these cities. Wait a minute, I haven't finished yet. Sheriff Stevenson said that Brian P. Kemp was the sorriest and the worst investigators he'd ever seen, and that he worked and investigated for overseas for the federal government. And he said that he did his county an injustice. Don't take my word for it. You can listen to him and hear his own words. I didn't soundbite it. I didn't write about what he said because I might have got it wrong. But I recorded it so you can hear him word for word for word and see if I am lying. Wait a minute. I haven't finished yet. Then I was called to Willacoochee, Georgia. There the white mayor was accused of paying black folk to vote for him, as well as having people come in from Coffee County to vote in their election, and they didn't even live there. Now, don't take my word for it. Don't take what I wrote, because I may have written it wrong. In other words, I might have misunderstood what the citizen was saying. But you Google Willacoochee, Georgia, voter problems, and you will see District Coordinator Larry Lockett and Bobby Worthy from Justice League United, and Can't think of my other brother's name right now. But there was a host of people, community leaders, talking about it. On video. Not my writing, not my article, not my interpretation. But you can hear what they said. And I didn't soundbite it. And let me add one other thing. Without exception, all these communities that I'm talking about, the news media, the white owned, the white dominated, and the white controlled could care less about publishing accurate and truth on those black folk that suffered. In one case, one of them died. And I may also add, Mary Ann Whipple's husband, Mr. Lou, he died from the stress they put upon his wife. He fell sick in City Hall and immediately died in the hospital from the stress. Who will pay for that? But God got it now. Somebody is going to pay. But the news media will not cover the news in the black community, and we have the proof. If anybody cared enough, just don't have to call me. Just go to Boston G.B.R., type in Boston G.B.R., and go down my playlist. I have complete playlists on the Madison, Florida 9, the Quitman 10 plus 2, Meg's Mayor Linda Harris, Camilla Rufus Davis, Lumpkin Mayor Charles Gibson, Dawson Mayor Christopher Wright, Warrenton Mayor George Ivey, Sparta and Hancock County, Davisboro, Gordon, Georgia with Mayor Mary Ann Whipple's, and Willacoochee, Georgia, and another city I think is Nichols, Georgia, I can't think of, right up above Douglas, where they haven't, listen, I don't know what in the hell GMA is doing back then from 2010 to now. That city right outside of Douglas and Coffee County, right up above Douglas. I think it might be Nichols, I'm not sure. But I got it documented, it's all documented. It got a playlist too. The clerk, city clerk, said that $750,000 had been taken and that that particular judicial circuit would not indict the person that they know had the money or took the money. The white clerk that talked to me said this as well, that they had not had an annual audit in 10 years. Listen to me, 10 years. But now don't take my word for it because I may lie to you. But Google $750,000 missing. It's just like Gordon, when the finance chair in Gordon under Mary Ann Whipple's brought it at many public meetings that that little city with less than 3,000 people, less than 3,000 people had 19 banking accounts. Now wait a minute, don't take my word for it because I may be lying to you. But watch the video and catch the word from his own mouth. You don't have to worry about my interpretation or what I wrote in an article. I wrote nothing, but I published real world and everything. Channel 13, Channel 41 there in Macon, Georgia, was biased, would not publish Mary Ann Whipple's truths. That's why I got it on video. I didn't write it. You will hear her say that they would not publish the truth. And that's why she called me for an interview. Views, make that plural. I mean, the things that happened under Nathan Deal, Governor Nathan Deal, and Secretary of State is a total disgrace. And it seemed as if though the local news media, newspapers, and television stations are in the clique and among the slicks. And that's what you got. Wait a minute. I haven't finished yet. Then I was called to a place called Douglas in Coffee County, Georgia. There were probably 3 to 5 people that was brought up on bogus voter fraud charges. They even arrested Commissioner Olivia Coley Pearson. And they brought her up twice. She been to court. They did the same thing that they did to the Quitman 10+2, that they did to Mayor Ann Whipperloo. That's right. We can prove it. But one thing about Mayor Ann Whipperloo, no, not Mayor Ann Whipperloo, Olivia Coley Pearson, one thing about her, her mother was a warrior, and she didn't, Commissioner Coley didn't back up from nothing. She have had a black mayor, Tony Polk, to, well, I'm not going to get into it, but I will say this to you. Google Tony Polk and Olivia Coley Pearson and see how they don't get along. And the Douglas Commission, they just, a few weeks ago, they just approved some minutes that it was brought out they wasn't even right and they was incomplete. Only 2 people voted against those minutes. And they said that it was a disgrace that the people on Douglas City Commission won't stand up for nothing except what the city manager and the mayor wants to be approved. And therefore, don't take my word for it. This is what you will hear from Commissioner Olivia Coley Pearson. So they called me over there. I can't tell you how many times I've been over there. At city meetings and other meetings. And while I'm at it, let me say this. I want to thank the people who stood up and supported Olivia Coley Pearson, because I'm telling you, they really tried. They did her so wrong. Even the Board of Election Supervisor, can't think of her first name, Misty Hampton, I think her name was. And you have seen her on CNN, MSNBC. They were part of letting people come in and oversee the machines and getting data from them. Not only that, but during a voter count, she let other news media go in the back, but wouldn't let me go. And when I told her they are in there and I'm going too, and do you know what they did? They told the other people to come out because they didn't want me to go back there. Yet I was a member of the press just like they were. And so Olivia Coley Pearson stood up and asked why was she taking absentee ballots in the back. See, Olivia Coley Pearson wasn't scared. But they brought her up on charges. And do you know she beat them all? She beat every one of them. That's right. Dealing in a corrupt judicial system. People, including Reverend Malone and others, have asked for the resignation of some of those district attorneys in that circuit. And Bobby Worthy and Mr. Paul Nally got to go to court for reasons we think are unjust. But it's okay. We'll see. But it's one thing I know, and that is, in the end, truth, right, and justice will win in the end. Now, Olivia Coley Pearson has been on 11 Alive Action News, ProPublica, and another news media outlet, but the actual local news media and TV station, for the most part, never got into the beef of what they put that young lady through. And she still is standing strong. She's been on the commission for over 23 years. And over those 23 years, I think he only had a challenge once or twice, because she was keeping the people satisfied in her district. Unlike a lot of black men and women that we see in city and county governments in Georgia who just sit there and occupy space and won't stand up because they're scared as hell. And black folk talk about them in the bathroom, in the commode, with the lid down. like they scared as hell. But it's getting out now. Black folk would rather see white folk in their chair who believe in God and doing what is right in God's world. So I think black folk had better wake up and stop just putting black folk in office who are not going to serve the needs of your family, your neighbor, and your community. And if they don't stand up for you like white folk, stand up for their communities, like the Jews and Latinos, stand up for the people in their community, then we don't need no damn black person just occupying space and look worse than little black Sambo and ain't James. We are sick and tired of black people doing the bidding for somebody else and not for the people that voted them into office. Wait a minute. That's Douglas and Coffee County. Then I was called to another place called Homerville, Georgia. And do you not know that a black lady by the name of Rhonda Cross Scott, they brought her up on voter fraud charges, and she didn't live in the district that all this stuff, you know. And that's too long for me to discuss. So I just want you to know that when it comes down to black and white, they treat them differently. Now, a city council member, Witherspoon. Now, I didn't know nothing about this. Again, I was called to these areas. I didn't just say, I'm going to check this out. Every place that I have called, they knew of me because of my reputation followed me. That's right. Behind me is what white folks did in Gardner, Mary Ann Whippaloo, all those signs criticizing her. And that was at every meeting that they wanted to. They just treated her so bad. So bad they treated her. But you can see all that in some of these videos. I don't have nothing to hide. I have everything to show because I believe in St. John 8:32. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set and make you free. I haven't lost my point. Homerville, Georgia. Mr. Witherspoon. Look, here's what he had. And they stood before the council that he had a homestead exemption in Florida. I said a homestead exemption in Florida. He had a homestead exemption here in Lowndes County where I reside. But he was holding office in Clinch County. And some people saw that as a problem. So the attorney for the city, he was so unfair, but Bobby Worthy put him in his place. Justice League United President Bobby Worthy put him in his place. Now, to save time, because I'm ready to close this out, Google Councilmember Witherspoon and Bobby Worthy. Yes, right. He had homestead exemption in Florida, one in Lowndes County, Georgia, and where he was elected, didn't even have a domicile. And do you not know? They didn't do a damn thing about it. You see, this white privilege is real. And how white folk have got over on us for so long is that we didn't have these little cameras now. Pen cameras, button cameras, eye cameras, got a little earphone camera. We didn't have all of these cameras back then. Police have always been killing and beating up black folk and then take it to court. And you got a judge there who a member of the same organization that they're in, turn thumbs down on them. Or a grand jury, turn thumbs down on them. Now look, y'all have a nice day. Have a nice day. But I'm here to tell you that white people think that this gonna stay this way. When I was a little boy, my grandmama told me that nothing lasts always. As I close out, I'm at an area now to close out. So I'm gonna turn this on and I'm gonna back it up. I want y'all to listen to a little bit of this so you can see how they treat black elected officials in the state of Georgia.
You're violating the rules.
Please exit my office. Y'all are being insubordinate.
No, ma'am, you're being rude and disrespectful to your employees.
Let me back up a little bit here. Let me back up a little bit if I can. I want you all to see what happens. Now, this is Gordon, Georgia, and a little bit I just mentioned to you all. I'm going to play this for you guys, okay? Then I'm going to close it out. Oh, by the way, this is Gordon. That's Mary Ann Whippaloo. Gordon, Georgia, Mary Ann Whippaloo, and removing black from office after they are elected. Stacey Abrams, you need to talk about this, sister. This is why the governor of the state of Georgia, or the Secretary of State, Brian P. Kemp, or Georgia Attorney General Sam Olsen need to come here into these southern towns and try to put an end to this before this get out of hand.
It's me, I need my minute books.
Okay, let me say this. I have the minute books, and if you need them, you need to go in there.
Do you realize you're supposed to look at those in my presence too? I'm the official record custodian. I am responsible
Clerk
for
Brown,
those.
good afternoon. And would you please
I don't
leave?
think so.
Please exit my office, please.
It is.
You're violating. I am the official record. You're not even supposed to take this out of my office.
This is the police chief, and this is the city clerk. And do you know the city clerk is the one who swear the council members in? I think she swear the mayor in too. Never seen that before. So from my observation, I may have it wrong, but eventually if you go to Gordon and look at the meetings, you can find out for yourself how much power this lady has and what her salary is with a high school education. I think you would be surprised, as I was, when I was informed about that. And I have nothing against her. I may have something against the people that have allowed this to exist. Now y'all just sit back and watch and see if they respect black elected officials. Or is it that white privilege controls?
Those are the official signed signature on there. You're very rude.
Leave it running. Leave it running.
And Mr. Ryan has no right to those records without open records.
Please exit my office.
And don't forget you have to
Exit my office.
But it is, we was advised, they was advised, she was advised by the attorney.
The city attorney told me to tell you that. You're violating the rules.
Please exit my office. Y'all are being insubordinate.
No, ma'am, you're being rude and disrespectful to your employees.
I'm Dr. Diane Thomas. I'm appalled at the fact that Brian Kemp has the audacity to come to Quitman, Georgia, the town where he tried to keep me from being on the Board of Education.